Before we begin, I have a program note. I was supposed to be playing The Running Man, but the episode was long and complicated and my work schedule had changed, so I wasn't able to put that episode out. And Christmas is just around the corner at the time of this recording, so instead of recording The Running Man, I decided to bump that into a later date, and instead I'm going to do an episode on Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And I've been wanting to do a Christmas episode that came out before Christmas for a long time now, and this is one of my favorite movies, and I just wanted to put out a Christmas movie at Christmas time. So that's the episode that we're going to do now. Who had final script approval for the beloved 2000 holiday film, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas? How did star Jim Carrey react to the extensive makeup and costume that he had to endure to play the titular Grinch? What accent did Jim Carrey use in his portrayal of the Grinch? These and more questions will be answered on
Backlit Cinema, the podcast, Christmas edition.
Enough of those who's inviting me down there on such short notice. Even if I wanted to go, my schedule wouldn't allow it. 4 o'clock, while on self-pity. 4:30, stare into the abyss. 5 o'clock, solve world hunger. Tell no one. 5:30, jazzercise. 6:30, dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. 7 o'clock, wrestle with my self-loathing. I'm booked. Of course, if I put the loathing at 9, I can still be done in time to lay in bed and stare at the ceiling and slip slowly into madness. But what would I wear? Hello, friends. My name is Zoe. It's spelled Z-O or Z to the O for those of you outside of the U.S. Welcome back. This is the 206th episode of Backlit Cinema, the podcast. We take a look back at the movies of yesteryear, especially the movies of the latter half of the last millennium. If you like what you're about to hear, then tell your family, tell your friends, and tell the meanest, stingiest, grumpiest friend you know about Backlit Cinema, the podcast. As you've heard in the beginning, we are going to be doing a show on How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It's based on a book by Dr. Seuss. And what's interesting is that a few years ago, there was an uproar, a controversy about some of the books that he wrote, some of his children's book. So let's talk about some of the possible controversies of Theodore Seuss Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss. As I mentioned, I grew up reading Dr. Seuss books. From his books, a child can learn to be empathetic, kind, and that we're all basically the same. I was shocked to learn that early in his career, he used a lot of harmful racial stereotypes, including works with anti-Black, anti-Asian, and anti-Semitic elements. This was especially true for political cartoons and advertisements he drew in the 1920s to the 1940s. Some of these elements blend into some of his early books as Dr. Seuss, the children's book author. However, over time, his works became less offensive and more inclusive. He even revised at least one of his books, that being And to Think I Saw It on Mulberry Street. He even revised some of the language that he used to be less offensive. A few years ago, Dr. Seuss Enterprises ceased publication of this book and 5 others over their harmful imagery. Most people remember his later works that emphasized inclusion and kindness. Many people point to books like The Sneetches to show not only how he evolved as a writer, but as a human being. Dr. Seuss is proof that just because you start in a harmful place doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay in that place. For me, it means I can enjoy his stories like How the Grinch Stole Christmas guilt-free. It was one of my favorite animated stories when I was growing up, and it was reimagined into one of my favorite Christmas movies in 2000. So let's get into it. Let's discover more about Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas in the opening credits. Within a snowflake that seemed to last for eternity, there lived a people who were obsessed with consumerism. This obsession with items, objects, and trinkets became overcharged and relentless in the days leading up to Christmas. Of all the people going about their days shopping for presents, one little girl wondered if this was what Christmas was all about. Would she learn from her parents, her neighbors, her friends? Would she learn the true meaning of Christmas from the most unlikely source of all, the meanest, grumpiest, and most cantankerous person in the entire snowflake? A slimy black banana peel who hated the others and wanted nothing more than to be left alone. The little girl would seek answers from the mean one that everyone else called the Grinch. How the Grinch Stole Christmas was released November 17th, 2000, produced by Universal Pictures and Imagine Entertainment. It grossed over $264 million in the US and Canada and over $350 million worldwide on a reported budget of $123 million. And this was the highest grossing Christmas movie since Home Alone. And that I didn't know. I think it was probably more expensive to produce than Home Alone. That $123 million budget is huge. And if you translate it to today's dollars, that would mean that they would have spent $231 million in today's dollars to make the movie. That's a lot of money to make a movie. But its gross at the box office in the US and Canada would have been $469 million. So almost $500 million. And worldwide, it would have been $658 million. So it would have been pretty good. It would have been great. You know, it would have been, I don't know if justifiable would be the word, but it garnered a healthy profit. So that is, it allowed the studio to carry on. People wonder why some of us talk about how much money or how much profit that a movie makes. And I think that it's important for movies to be profitable, because if a movie is profitable, then the studios will continue to make more movies, or they won't collapse, or they won't fall into such financial despair that they have to be bought up by another studio. And then when that happens, we lose a studio and we have less choice, it seems. But enough of that. Let's talk about who was in the movie. This movie starred Jim Carrey as the Grinch. You may have seen him in Kick-Ass 2, Dumb and Dumber, The Cable Guy, or the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. And I realized that when I was growing up, I watched a lot of Jim Carrey movies. I shouldn't say when I was growing up. I grew up in the 80s. I was a full adult in the 90s. So as a full adult in the 90s, because he's a lot of what he's in is fantastic. And I enjoy watching movies with him in it. So he did a fantastic job in this movie as well. Also starring Taylor Momsen. She plays Cindy Lou Who, and she is the leader of a punk rock band called The Pretty Reckless. And you may have seen her also in Spy Kids 2, Island of Lost Dreams, or Underdog, which is a live action version of a cartoon that I used to watch. But she's most recognized and most notable, and most people would know her from Gossip Girl, a popular TV show that was on in the early 2000s. There's also Kelly, the dog that played Max. This is Max's only screen appearance. Then there's Anthony Hopkins. He plays the narrator. And you might have seen some of his works like The Silence of the Lambs, Nixon, The World's Fastest Indian is another one of his works. Jeffrey Tambor played Mayor Mayhew, and you might have seen him in Hellboy from 2004, The Accountant from 2016, or another Jim Carrey movie, Mr. Popper's Penguins. It's weird that I had a hard time saying that. Christine Baranski plays Martha May Whovillier. Martha May Whovillier. And you might have seen her in Mamma Mia, Chicago, or The Ref. And she is a frequent presence on television and movies. She's mostly on television. She's either playing the aristocrat or the I'm trying to think of the word for it. The cougar type character. It's kind of a mix of the aristocratic cougar. Bill Irwin plays Lulu Who, and you might have seen him in Rachel Getting Married. He was in Interstellar. You might not have seen him because he was a voice actor for TARS, and he was also in Lady in the Water. Molly Shannon played Betty Lou Who. She's been in Superstar, Other People, and Never Been Kissed. Clint Howard is here, of course, and you'll see why in a minute. He plays Hubris, that's the mayor's assistant. And this is a larger role than I normally see him in. He's also been in Terrifier 3, Solo, A Star Wars Story, or Frost Nixon. But he actually does a lot of movies. He has a hefty, thick IMDb. But I noticed that a lot of those movies are not highly rated, right? They're low-scoring movies. Josh Ryan Evans plays 8-year-old Grinch. He was actually older than 8 years old. He had a form of dwarfism, and sadly, he passed away at 20 years old in 2002. So he was probably 17 or 18 when he played this role. And this is his only movie. He's better known for the TV show Passions. Interestingly, since he played the younger version of the Grinch, it doesn't seem like I found a lot of information on how he took to the makeup. But Jim Carrey, on the other hand, he playing the Grinch, he definitely had a well-publicized reaction to being in the makeup and being a costume, and we'll cover more about that in the trivia. But I thought that Josh Ryan Evans did a fantastic job as the young Grinch. It was a nice compliment to the adult Grinch played by Jim Carrey. This movie was directed by Ron Howard, brother of Clint Howard. And at least I've noticed that Clint Howard is in a lot of his brother's films. And the other thing that I noticed is that the higher rated films that feature Clint Howard are usually the films that are directed by Ron Howard. So interesting how that works out. Other movies that Ron Howard directed are Angels and Demons, Cinderella Man, Ransom, Far and Away, Parenthood, Cocoon, which I need to do the movie Cocoon. That was a fascinating movie. Splash, which only recently I realized that he had directed. And of course, Willow. I have a complicated relationship with Willow. I mean, I liked it, but I wished it was better. It was written by Dr. Seuss, Jeffrey Price, and Peter S. Seaman. So obviously Dr. Seuss had written the original story. He is the beloved children's author who created the book. And Price and Seaman are a writing duo who wrote other movies like Wild Wild West from 1999, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I think they're most famous for, Last Holiday, a Queen Latifah movie, Doc Holliday, and Shrek the Third. This movie had music composed by James Horner, and you might recognize his name from the Avatar movies, Southpaw, The Magnificent Seven from 2016, a movie called The 33, The Karate Kid from 2010, or Apocalypto, among many, many others. And the music in this movie was beautiful. It was Christmassy. And I like the way that it blended with the soundtrack. Speaking of which, I want to talk about some of the songs that are on the soundtrack. So one of the songs is Where Are You Christmas? It was written by James Horner as well as Will Jennings and, surprisingly, Mariah Carey. I had just learned, I actually listened to another podcast talk about how the Grinch stole Christmas a few weeks ago. And that podcast is called Black People Love Paramore. And on that podcast, that's where I learned that Mariah Carey wrote this song, and I didn't realize it. And I've always known Mariah Carey wrote her own songs, but I never knew her as a person who wrote songs for other people. And it seemed to me that Mariah Carey would have sung this song. And instead, the song was sung by Faith Hill. But as it turns out, there's a reason why Mariah Carey did not sing the song for this movie. As it turns out, because of her divorce from record executive Tommy Mottola, her version of the song couldn't be released because she recorded the song, but it could be released because of complications with divorcing a record executive. So the unforeseen circumstances of getting a divorce, I guess. And I guess because of the complications of contracts and whatnot, it's not something that she can actually sing, but perhaps in the future, we will hear her version. If you see versions of her singing a song on YouTube or anywhere else on the internet, those are AI versions, so don't believe those. Hopefully, we'll get her version eventually. Another song I wanted to highlight was Christmas, Why Can't I Find You? The song was also music by James Horner with lyrics by Will Jennings and is sung by Taylor Momsen. What's interesting is that the adult Taylor Momsen and her band, The Pretty Reckless, they do a delightful cover of that song, and it's on YouTube. Basically blending, it's a video where it blends her singing a song in the movie when she was a child, and then she picks up the song as an adult. So it's a very cute way of doing a cover. And then while it's going on, she's singing the song as it was sung in the movie, and then her band does like a punk rock version of the song, and then it ends with her doing the traditional version of the song. It's very nice. I included a link so you can watch it on YouTube in the show notes. I encourage everyone to check it out. Also, we got to talk about the highlight song of the movie, You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. It was written by Dr. Seuss and Albert Haig, and it was sung by Jim Carrey. And that is a fascinating song. And what's interesting is that I had watched the cartoon before I watched the movie, and the original song was sung by someone who had a deep and authoritative voice. And that was sung by Thurl Ravencroft. So that was, or maybe it's pronounced Ravenscroft. And I never knew who sang the song. And as it turns out, the reason that a lot of people don't know who sang the song is because they accidentally didn't credit him when the show came out. And Dr. Seuss and somebody else, they actually put a full-page ad in Variety to let everybody know that Thurl Ravenscroft sung that song for the show. The last one I wanted to talk about was Welcome Christmas. This is in the movie, they open with this song and they close with this song. When they open with a song, they open with an instrumental version. But this is the song that the Who's sing at the end of this movie and at the end of the animated special. It was written by Dr. Seuss and Albert Haig, and it was sung by the cast that included Taylor Momsen and Jim Carrey. And so it's a lot. It had a lot of nonsense lyrics in there, but it was basically a song that welcomed Christmas. It was a song that the Who's sang when all of their Christmas presents were taken and all they had was each other. And so they celebrated Christmas without the presents, because they knew that the presents didn't matter. Only the fellowship mattered. And I'll get into more of that in a minute. But before I do, I just want to have some announcements. My regular announcements, they don't hardly ever change. And that is that you can check out backlickcinema.com/shop. Obviously, it's too late to go there to get any Christmas presents. But for those who get like a check on Christmas, that's a place where you can spend your check at backlickcinema.com/shop. And that's it for the announcements. And now we'll go to our favorite parts. I would say the theme of this movie is beware of consumerism. Don't let it overshadow the community, the caring, the empathy. It's slightly different from the themes of the 1966 cartoon special. In the cartoon, it's the Grinch that needed to learn the lesson of consumerism, because he believed that the Who's were only happy because of the presents and the decor. That's why that was what motivated him to go down and steal all their presents. And he didn't want to hear them singing or all the noise that they were making with all of their presents that they were going to open up. So he wanted to disrupt their Christmas. He wanted to make them sad. He wanted to hear them wail and whine and cry about how somebody came in and stole their Christmas paraphernalia. And because that stuff was stolen, that means that their Christmas was stolen. And they would be sad and upset and disturbed. And they would cry in despair. But after the Who's decorations were taken, and I'm talking primarily about the cartoon, the Grinch did not get what he wanted. Instead of the crying and the wailing, he heard singing, and he saw that the Who's were celebrating in spite of him disrupting Christmas. It's like, in spite of his actions, Christmas came anyway, and the Who's didn't have their presents and their decorations, but they celebrated each other. In spite of everything, even though the Grinch stole all of their food, they still had each other, and they celebrated and fellowshipped anyway. And it was when the Grinch saw this, he understood that the Who's weren't preoccupied with consumerism. And that's when his heart grew 2 sizes that day. And he was filled with caring, and he restored the Who's Christmas. He brought their Christmas presents and decorations back. But it's different in the movie. In the movie, the Who's of Whoville are actually very concerned with consumerism. And it's slightly different, because in the movie, they wanted to expand the story. So they wanted to give a reason why the Grinch hated the Who's and hated Christmas and why he acted the way he acted. And the movie doesn't completely answer that question, only that perhaps he was different. Like they're suggesting that he's like a different creature. He's not actually a Who. And he's always been like cantankerous about Christmas. He's always, he didn't really enjoy Christmas until he met someone special. And then he tried to give Christmas a go of it, but then only to be made fun of by the other kids. And that's what caused him to grow up to be the way he was. But the people of Whoville themselves, they were consumed with buying and giving and trinkets and boobobs and baubles and stuff like that. So at the end of the movie, after the Grinch takes all of their stuff, he almost gets what he wants. They start to complain and they start to cry. And it took Mary Lou Who and her family to remind everybody else in Whoville about the true meaning of Christmas and that they had each other and they can fellowship. And that's when they started to sing and celebrate Christmas anyway, in spite of the Grinch. But they had to learn that lesson. It wasn't something that was inherent in them like in the original cartoon. So that's one of the main differences between the cartoon and the movie. Also, I wanted to mention the narrator because around Halloween, I did a story on, I talked about the movie Frankenstein. And obviously Frankenstein is played by Boris Karloff. He played Frankenstein in multiple movies. And then he also played different types of monsters. Eventually he played regular human beings. But I was surprised to learn that Boris Karloff was the narrator of the original cartoon. And it's so strange because you have Frankenstein and he speaks in The Bride of Frankenstein. Like he obviously he has an intellect of like a 5 or 6 year old, but his acting in Frankenstein and his narration in the cartoon are so different. Like in the cartoon, he's like, and obviously in the movie, he's scary and frightening, but in the cartoon, he's gentle, he's kind. He's like, he's got that grandfatherly voice. It's a voice that you can trust, that you can rely on. It's comforting, and it's coming from Frankenstein's monster. So I found that fascinating. And what I like about Anthony Hopkins is that he matches it, but it's like, you're not surprised that this is something that Anthony Hopkins can do. We've seen enough of Anthony Hopkins being able to do a kind and gentle voice. But at the same time, Hopkins also played a monster. He played Hannibal Lecter. So he and Boris Karloff are the same in that regard. Men playing monsters, and at the same time, men narrating children's stories. So in a cartoon, the Grinch is mean. Nobody really knows why he's mean. That people, at least from the narrator's perspective, the theory is that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Like he was born with an undeveloped heart, and that's why he was mean and heartless. But that was the only rationale given for his behavior. In the movie, obviously, it's more than that, because the movie kind of serves as an origin story. But even in the origin story, it's like he comes with the other Who babies. The Who babies are delivered on balloons, or actually things that look like umbrellas, not balloons. But what's curious about it was that they suggested, or the narrator suggested, that a strong wind blew in. And so perhaps blowing a strange baby from some other place, maybe from some other snowflake. And the baby turned out to be who would eventually be known as the Grinch. So everything unusual about this baby. He's green. He's covered in fur. And, he doesn't look like anybody else in Whoville, but he's adopted by these two women anyway. They care for him. They try to raise him. They try to get him to like partake in all the Whoville traditions. But he's still kind of mean. Like he's a mean little kid. It takes him a while to get up to actually caring about other people. And then one incident at schools and all of this is like he's making a little bit of progress. He's making some progress. And then an event happens when he's in school that destroys his progress, and he runs away from Whoville. He runs up to live on a mountain. They don't explain how he got Max the dog. It could be because somebody threw the dog away. Because there's a mechanism in this in this movie where I don't know who set it up. Probably the people of Whoville, but they got some kind of like, I don't want to call it a transport system, but it's a tunnel that can shoot objects from the town on Whoville all the way up to the top of the mountain. And that's basically where they dump their trash. And that is where the Grinch ended up. In the cartoon, the Grinch is a hateful creature. He hates the singing. He hates the noise. He's been putting up with it for 53 years. And this year he decides he's not going to take it anymore. And being an accomplished tailor, he sews himself a Santa outfit. Like, people forget that he sewed his own Santa costume. He would have been a great cosplayer. He put in the work to make his halfway decent Santa costume. And then, he had I guess an old sled that was lying around. And then he tied a makeshift reindeer horn on his dog Max. And he was off to the races. He raced down to Whoville, started stealing everything, and then stealing nonsensical things that didn't have anything to do with Christmas. Like, he stole regular light bulbs. It's not even just Christmas light bulbs. He stole regular light bulbs. He stole ice cubes. Just nonsensical things that he stole. Also in the cartoon, there was Cindy Lou Who, the little girl. Not a huge role in the cartoon, only that when the Grinch went to her house, either he woke her up or she just got up on her own and saw what she thought was Santa Claus stealing the Christmas tree. Like, he had already taken everything else. He was trying to stuff the Christmas tree up the chimney because he decided he was going to take that too. And then when he got caught by Cindy, he just pretended that he was Santa Claus and that he noticed that there was a light on the Christmas tree that wasn't working. So he's going to take the whole Christmas tree back to his workshop, fix the Christmas tree, and then return it to her house. And she's only like 2 years old, so she bought the story, and the Grinch sent her to bed. And that was like the fullness of her participation in the cartoon. I mean, we see her again, and like at the end of the cartoon, where she's featured, because I suppose the Grinch takes a shine to her. But as I said, the Grinch witnesses everybody celebrating. He gets emotional. He returns all the stuff. He's even given the honor of carving the roast beast, and it's a real feel good story, a story about the real meaning of togetherness and fellowship and so on and so forth. Obviously, in the movie version, it's much more elaborate because they have to expand something like which really a 15-minute story. They have to expand it into something like an hour and a half, which is a challenge. And so they accomplished that challenge by adding a lot more characters, expanding Cindy Lou's role, kind of, as I mentioned, changing the themes a little bit, just adjusting the themes so that basically the Who, I don't even know what to call them. I guess they call them the Who. The Who, not the rock band, but the people living in Whoville, they are not as pure as they are in the cartoon or the original book. So in the movie, they are, like I said, obsessed with consumerism. And that is what makes the Grinch sick. He hates their consumerism, and he also hates the noise and all of the other things that about them. One of the funniest parts of the movie, one of my favorite parts, is near the beginning of the movie where the Grinch, he gets a disguise. He disguises himself as one of the Who. He puts on, it's like a robe with a hoodie. I forgot what you call it. A shroud, something like that. Anyway, he puts on this shroud, and then he has a plastic mask that kind of looks like a Who, but it's a caricature of a Who. It's like a Who it's a mask with big buck teeth and big goofy eyes. And he goes down to Whoville just to mess with them, right? Just to play a bunch of pranks on them, basically because he has nothing better to do. And the other reason is because it just gives him joy to cause them turmoil. One of the things he does is that he goes to the post office when nobody's there, and he mixes up everybody's letters. So they, like, the post office is organized where you put the right name in the right box, and he takes all the letters and he mixes up the names in the boxes just to give the people at the post office a hard time. And then he gives out a lot of letters that have to do with jury duty and bills. And I'm not exactly sure if these were real jury duty letters, or he's probably just playing pranks on them, making them think that they got jury duty letters. But it was a funny part. Another favorite thing about this movie that I have is the makeup and costume were outstanding. It was just amazing. They were so, like, the Grinch looks authentic. Like, it was for Jim Carrey, it was a painful costume, but it was a wonderful costume. And most of the people of Whoville, they were in a significant amount of costume. There were only two. They had these like strange noses, but there were only two people that didn't look like they had these weird Whoville nose, and one of them was Cindy Lou Who, played by Taylor Momsen. And I imagine because she's a little girl, and at the same time they wanted her to look cute, so because they wanted her to look cute, they let her keep her regular nose. And also they probably didn't want to put a 5-year-old in excessive makeup. I'm not exactly sure how old she was in this movie, or how old the actor was, but she's very young, and they don't want to layer a bunch of excessive makeup on her. And the other one was Christine Baranski, and as Martha May Whovillier, she's supposed to be the cute one, a little bit vain also. It's funny, right? Because there's an element in the movie where Martha May has a rivalry with Betty Lou Who. Betty Lou Who is Cindy Lou's mother. And so Martha May has a rivalry with Betty Lou over the decorations, house decorations. Betty Lou is so desperate to win the decoration contest that she actually, at one point, steals a traffic light and causes an accident. So the rivalry is cute. They have a couple of other like sub stories within the greater stories, but I think that's what makes this movie interesting and fun to watch. Although these costumes were incredible and beautiful, I do have to say that the contacts that Jim Carrey wore, they looked painful. They looked super hard. They looked like they put super hard contacts on his delicate eyeballs. So I was feeling for him, looking at him through the contacts, with the contacts that he was wearing. They looked a little too militant. There's also, what was also great is the set. And that goes in hand with the costume. Everything just seemed to match. It's like they did a lot to make sure that the costumes and the set kind of match the original drawings from the Doctor Who book and also the cartoon that came before it. So I really enjoy it. It just draws you in. It just made it feel real. And I like the effort they put it in, that they had put in to make you feel like you're watching a live action or a Doctor Who story brought to life. The script is also another one of my favorite parts. I feel like there's a lot of improvisation there, especially from Jim Carrey. So sure, the script was fantastic. A lot of the dialogue was magical, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of the dialogue, especially the Grinch's dialogue, a lot of that was either ad-libbed or improvised by Jim Carrey. So just having Jim Carrey there made the script better. Another part that I like is that there's one point, I think this is probably after he kind of messes with the people in Whoville. Another thing that he does is that he saves Cindy Lou. Like at one point when he's playing one of these pranks, and I'm talking about the Grinch, when the Grinch is playing one of these pranks, I think he's in a post office, and Cindy Lou's father is the postmaster. So he gets her to send to take some letters to the back room to help Daddy out. And she takes the letter, she goes into the back room, and she discovers the Grinch. Well, she discovers this giant Who person without his mask, and she discovers the Grinch. She screams because everybody is afraid of the Grinch. And then when she screams, she falls into one of the packaging machines or the mailing machines. So she falls into this mail sorting machine, and she starts to get stuck. She starts to fall through, and the Grinch was just going to leave her, and he turns around, but Max starts to bite Grinch on the butt to make the Grinch do something about the little girl. And the Grinch says, "Ow, that's not a chew toy." And that's funny. And anyway, because of Max's intervention, the Grinch decides to rescue Cindy Lou. So he pulls her out of this mail sorting machine. And then as he walks away, she says, "I knew you were nice. I knew you weren't going to I knew you were going to rescue me." And then that bugs him that she would say that. And he says, "My dear, I'm afraid you were mistaken. I just noticed that you weren't properly packaged." And he got a bunch of wrapping paper. And when her father finds her, he finds that she's been wrapped up like a Christmas present. And that scene where he's wrapping her, that's also funny. It's because basically what happens is that it's Cindy Lou being wrapped from her point of view. So she sees, from her point of view, is like the Grinch is all over her, starting to wrap the paper up around her. And at one point he says, "Let me borrow your finger for a minute," because I guess he wants to use her finger. She wants her to place her finger someplace to tie a knot so that he could wrap her up properly. You don't see it. It's just a bunch of stuff that he's shouting. He's shouting a bunch of stuff that I guess a person might shout when they're wrapping a present. And that's a funny scene. And then, like I said, next time you see her, she's all wrapped up. But she's rescued. And from that point on, she's like fascinated with the Grinch. It's like she can't stop thinking about the Grinch. It's like she feels that there's some good in him, that he's not as terrible a person as everybody seems to make him out to be. And she actually goes on a quest to find out more about him. And that's why we get the Grinch's backstory. We get the backstory because she's going about doing interviews with people who would have known him when he was a child or when he was growing up. She interviews the people who, the two women who raised him, and they talk about how they tried to raise him to like Christmas. She interviews Martha May Whovier, and when you see this interview, you can see that she actually likes the prince, the Grinch. And at one point she says that, oh no, I didn't have a crush on him. And Cindy Lou says, I didn't ask you if you had a crush on him. It's like, so she's kind of giving away the game. And Cindy Lou also interviews the mayor, and the mayor had a very low opinion. And as it turns out, the mayor was actually one of the Grinch's bullies when the Grinch was growing up. So, as I mentioned, the Grinch was like a mean little kid who didn't like Christmas. He has a habit of eating glass and porcelain, not because he's destructive, but that's just his diet. He also likes onions. So what changes his mind about Christmas was he was attracted to Martha May. And he kind of got a sense that Martha May liked him too. And even the way that as the adult Martha May describes him, you can see that she continues to carry that attraction for the Grinch. There's just something about him that she really likes. One of the things that she likes about him is that he was green. I guess because that was one of her favorite colors. The Grinch wanted to do something nice for her as a kid. So as a kid, he starts gathering materials and he's making this figure. What he makes is this metallic angel with jewelry in it that she can put on top of the Christmas tree. And he was thinking that, this is going to be the greatest Christmas tree decoration that she ever got. So he makes this and he tries to, and actually the other thing was that the kids were bullying him because he had a beard. So after he makes this metallic Christmas tree ornament, he gets razors and, he decides to give himself a shave to have a smooth skin so the kids won't tease him. And I think that he believes that this is something that Martha May would like. And then he shows up for school. He doesn't want to show his face, but then when the kids finally see his face and he tries to present this Christmas ornament to Martha May, they see that he's nicked himself a bunch and they start making fun of him again. And that's what throws him over the edge. He tries to embrace this spirit of giving, the spirit of empathy. He tries to be somebody who likes, he tries to get into the Christmas spirit. And it's ruined for him because the kids make fun of him because he nicked himself shaving. So he destroys the ornament and he runs away and he runs up to the mountain, and he had been there. He grew up on the mountain. He'd been there ever since. Surrounded by junk, basically, because, as I said, the people of Whoville, they built this contraption that would send basically all of their garbage up to the mountain. Anything they wanted to throw away, they would put it in this chute that would send all of the, their garbage and stuff up to the top of the mountain. And then the Grinch would use it to basically create this layer in the mountain. One of the things that's funny is that I'm pretty sure that they had tried to sneak in a bunch of adult references or something of that nature. And I'm pretty sure a lot of it had gotten taken out. And I'll explain that more in the trivia. But one of the things I learned from the podcast that I had mentioned earlier is that there's a reference to a possible reference, not a guarantee, but a possible reference to a swingers party. So when they were talking about the Grinch's backstory, they showed glimpses of a holiday get together. And I can't remember whose get together it was, but they're having this get together, and there is a blink and you miss it moment where you see a bowl and everybody's putting their keys into a bowl, but that's not normal behavior. Like normally when you go to a party, you don't go into the party and put your key into a bowl. Normally you just keep your keys in your pocket. And on the podcast, they said that that's in reference, that's a possible reference to a swingers party. Like that's something that they do where they collect all your car keys and you put them in a bowl. And then when you're ready to leave, I think you grab random keys or something like that, and you and you take whoever a different person to your home than who you came with to the swingers party or something of that nature. I don't know how it works. I've never been to a swingers party, but I know it has something to do with keys in a bowl, which is something that they showed happening at this party in a children's movie, and I never caught the reference. I watched it as an adult, so I seriously doubt that any child would catch the reference. But I thought that was interesting. I had to hear it on a podcast to figure out what was going on there. In this version of the story, not only are they celebrating Christmas, but they're celebrating something like, I forgot what they call it, the Whovillation. And it's a additional celebration. It's like the 100th anniversary or something like that. It's not something that they celebrate all of the time, but in this celebration, they want to have like a man of honor or something like that. And so the mayor gives the people a chance to nominate the man of honor, and Cindy Lou, after doing all of these interviews and finding out about the Grinch, she wants to nominate the Grinch. And most of the townspeople, they're poo-pooing the idea. And the mayor, most of all, as I said, was one of the Grinch's main bullies and doesn't like the Grinch and really tried to discourage anybody from nominating the Grinch. And they have this book for Whoville, where they get a lot of their knowledge from. It's similar to the Bible. It's kind of like a stand-in for the Bible. And so he's using the book to try to justify the exclusion of the Grinch. But Cindy Lou also knows the Who book, and she knows that they are supposed to be charitable. They're supposed to honor the people who need it the most. So the mayor relents because he's pretty sure that the Grinch is never going to show up. And if the Grinch doesn't show up, then he'll get the honor because he's the second nominee or something like that. So he allows the Grinch to be nominated. And Cindy Lou goes to the mountain to invite the Grinch to this celebration. There's a funny interaction between the little girl and the Grinch. At first he tries to scare her away, but she's no longer afraid of the Grinch. After doing all of these interviews and additionally being fascinated by him, it's like there's nothing that he could do to frighten her, because like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, she sees the good in him. So he kind of ejects her out of his house because he doesn't want to go to the celebration. But Max, the dog, manages to grab the reservation. Where he dumps her, the way he gets rid of her is that he pulls the lever, she falls through a trap door, and the same tube, well, a similar tube, it can't be the same tube, can it? I guess it's the same tube and they have different openings or whatever. But it's a tube the same tube that they use to send the stuff up, the junk from Whoville up to the mountain, is the same tube that he sends Cindy Lou through a trap door. He sends her down this tube and she ends up back in Whoville. But he still has an invitation. So now he's perplexed as to whether or not he's fighting with himself, whether he should go to the celebration or not. And that was what I was reciting in the beginning of the show. Him trying to figure out whether or not he should go to this celebration. And that's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It is so funny. some of that was improvised, some of that was scripted, some of that was improvised, and Jim Carrey just makes it so funny. It's like additionally funny. Another thing about it is that he had grabbed I don't know, I want to say he grabbed something like a curtain or a bed sheet or something like that, and he wraps it around him, and he asks Max, "What do you think?" And Max answers, just barks at him, and and the Grinch said, "What are you talking about? It's a kilt, not a dress." And then I put it together as that if he's imitating Sean Connery, then of course he's basically the Grinch is Scottish, and the Scottish Grinch is going to be wearing a kilt. But because it's just a white sheet, it just kind of looks like a dress. So finally, he didn't know if he was going to go because he can't find anything to wear. And there happened to be a Grinch dressed in, not a Grinch, I'm sorry, a Whoville resident near the top of his mountain, and he's yodeling, and he's wearing the that weird I want to say they're yoga hosers. Well, or that type of weird dress that some people in Germany wear, or Switzerland, that I don't know the name for it, but it's a European dress that somebody who yodels would wear. So the Grinch saw that, and he grabs this Who and he steals his dress or the clothing. But I don't know what he did with the Who. It's like he grabbed him, and next thing you know, you see the Grinch wearing the clothes, but they don't show what happened to the Who. So probably dumped the Who down the same hole or the same trapdoor that he had dumped Cindy Lou. They don't explain that part. It's just that you see this character wearing clothes, and next thing you know, the character's gone and the Grinch is wearing his clothes. Now I refuse to believe that the Grinch killed him. I don't believe that the Grinch is a killer, but that is something I noticed. So while the Grinch is still being indecisive about whether or not he's going to go to the celebration, he happens to be standing on the trap door, and Max pulls the lever to send the Grinch to the celebration. And so he tries to enjoy himself. And since he's the man of honor, or he's the creature of honor, he's doing all of these things where he's being paraded around. He's judging food contests. He's singing and dancing. He's actually having a good time. People are having a good time with him. He's actually fellowshipping with the Who's of Whoville, and it seems to be working. And then when they're about to bestow more honors on him, they're supposed to be giving some gifts. The gift that he's being given by the mayor, remember the mayor was his main bully as a child. The gift that they give the Grinch was razor clippers. This was meant to remind him of how he got upset and ran on top of the mountain because of the shaving incident. So it's almost like they presented the clippers as a mean prank. And then on top of that, the mayor proposes to Martha May in front of everybody, in front of the Grinch, in front of everybody. It's almost like he knows that he and the Grinch were kind of competing for Martha May back when they were in school. So he's going to propose to the Grinch. He's going to propose to Martha May in front of the Grinch. And he presents it with this huge diamond ring, or I don't know if the jewel was diamond. It's some kind of Who specific jewelry. So he presents her with this huge ring, and then at the same time, to sweeten the deal, he's offering her a car. And then he presents it like a game show. He's like, he's like saying stuff like, going once, going twice. You got to decide soon whether or not you're going to marry me. And then that's when the Grinch gets upset. It's like, that's the problem with you people. It's all about the things that you're giving. It's all about these materialism. It's all about consumerism. And then that's when he gets upset. He goes crazy. He starts causing all kind of ruckus. Like he's causing all kind of chaos, including a giant explosion in the middle of Whoville. And that was a wonderful part. I really liked that part. And then after causing all of this chaos and destruction, he gets into that Whoville disposal pipe to send himself back home on top of the mountain. The Grinch thinks that he's ruined their Christmas after this calamity that he caused. He thinks that he has caused them despair. But then when he looks from his mountain to Whoville, he notices that, and one of the things he did is he destroyed the main Christmas tree in the middle of town. But looking through his binoculars, he sees that the Who have another Christmas tree. Like they got a spare giant Christmas tree, and they put that Christmas tree in the middle of town. So that's what drives him to really disrupt their Christmas. He's trying to figure out how he's going to do it. And then he gets the idea to dress up as Santa Claus and go down and steal all of their presents. This part that kind of picks up and starts to shadow the original cartoon, or the earlier cartoon, and the original book that the movie is based off of, where he starts to build himself, or he sew himself a costume so he can be disguised as Santa Claus. At the same time, he's building a sled. In the cartoon, he already has a sled that just so happened to be around his mountain. But in the movie, he's like building this high-tech sled. Like the sled is going to run on fuel. It has all kinds of knobs and buttons. It's a sophisticated piece of machinery. So when he's going through all of this, that's when they play "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch." And it's fascinating because in the cartoon, it's the narrator that's singing the song. So he's singing the song about the Grinch and to the Grinch, and telling the Grinch what a terrible person he is. But in the movie, it's the Grinch singing the song about himself, because he enjoys being the mean and nasty individual that he is. And so he's like pumping himself up by telling himself what a mean and nasty individual he is. He's singing to himself about what a horrible person that he is. And it gets him pumped up and excited about stealing Christmas from the Who's. So he goes through all the things that happen in the original stories. You know, he goes down, it's like a montage of him taking stuff from the people of Whoville. He, like in the original story, he has a confrontation with Cindy Lou Who, but in this confrontation, he's trying to hide from her, because in this version, they basically have a relationship. So she would recognize him. So the tree that he's about to stuff up the chimney, at first he's hiding behind a tree. And one of the things Cindy Lou asks is, because she asks her parents, and, what was Christmas all about? And, the parent says, oh, it's about the presents, and she's not satisfied with that answer. So now she meets Santa Claus. Like, of anybody who would know the meaning of Christmas, Santa Claus would know. Unfortunately, in this case, it's Santa Claus disguised, or is actually the Grinch in disguise. So she asked Santa Claus what the meaning of Christmas was. And at first, the Grinch says, revenge. And he actually reveals himself to her, but she doesn't recognize him. She's kind of shocked that he would say that. And then the Grinch realized what he said, and he pulls himself back and he says, it's about the presents, of course. And Cindy Lou is kind of like dejected. and Santa Claus sends her back to her room with a cup of water. And then when she gets back to the room, he continues with his shenanigans. So he brings all the stuff back to the top of the mountain, and then he's waiting for all of the wailing and the crying and the lamentations. He's really carrying on the Conan ethos of hearing the lamentations of the women. And he almost gets his wish. In this version of the story, he almost gets his wish because the Whos are consumed by consumerism. It's like their whole thing is that the meaning of Christmas is the trinkets and the ding dongs and the giving and receiving of gifts and the Christmas decorations and now everything is gone. Their Christmas was actually stolen, and that's how they perceive it. And they actually start complaining. The mayor start complaining. It's actually Cindy Lou who says that this is not what Christmas should be about. Christmas should be about being together and fellowshipping. And that's when the Who start to gather together and they start to sing. And when they start to sing, Cindy Lou decides to go back up to the mountain to visit the Grinch. And meanwhile, on the mountain, the Grinch sees that everybody is celebrating. Just like in the original stories, he's perplexed that they're able to celebrate without the food and the toys and the trinkets and all of these things that he took from them. But what I liked is that the portrayal of the Grinch growing his heart is like he's going through a painful metamorphosis where his heart is actively growing in his chest. And then it's not just the physical heart that's growing, but it's also the instant emotional develop he starts to have. And he says, "What is this I'm feeling?" And then he's crying and he's like, "I'm leaking." So he starts to experience things that he's never had before. And at the same time, at least he's experiencing things other than anger and hate. But it's at this point that he sees, like, he has a mountain of stuff on top of his sled. And then he looks up, and on top of this mountain is Cindy Lou. And also this stuff is about to fall down the mountain. And at first, he doesn't know that she's up there. When his sled starts to fall down the mountain, like in the original story, he's trying to keep the sled from falling down because, he doesn't want the stuff to be destroyed. I think at this point, he's thinking about returning the stuff to the Whos. And so he's holding the sled to keep it from falling down the mountain. And then when Cindy Lou reveals herself and she's on top of the sled, on top of this mountain of stuff, because at first, the Grinch was going to let it go, he says, "What does it matter? It's just toys." And then when he sees Cindy Lou, he can't let Cindy Lou get hurt. And then that's when he gets this super strength. It's like he gets a flow of adrenaline. He gets a super strength. And not only does he pull the sled from keeping it from going down the mountain, but he actually is able to lift it up with his two arms. And this reminds me of something that happened early in the movie. That was really funny that I forgot to mention. So there's a part in the movie where he's talking about his, he has like a kind of x-ray machine and he wants to examine his heart. So he puts it in front of his chest and you can see the inside and his heart seems to shrink a little bit. And he says, "Oh, it shrunk by a third of a quarter," or something like that. He says, "It shrunk by a third of a quarter. And this time I'll keep it off." Like he's kind of aping the weight loss commercials. So I like that. But at any rate, he didn't keep it off. His heart grew 2 sizes too big. His heart grew 4 times or 3 times that day or something like that. Anyways, they go down a mountain, they celebrate. He gives everything back. The people of Whoville forgive him, and they start to celebrate and they start to sing, and it's a feel good ending to the movie. Also, as a bonus, I mean, this is from where the movie is different from the story. Martha May Whovier decides that she doesn't want to marry the mayor, and she decides that she wants to be with the Grinch because she's had a thing for the Grinch for basically her entire life. and so when the Grinch comes back and he's dressed as Santa Claus and he's giving everybody all of their stuff back, and he asks for forgiveness and the town forgives him, she basically throws herself at the Grinch and they become a thing, an item. And so that was How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and I had a fun time with this rewatch. It was as entertaining and delightful as it was when I saw it many years ago. I think this is only my maybe third rewatch. I hadn't seen it in such a long time, but I had started seeing people talking about this movie, and I was like, this would be a good movie to talk about, because I hadn't seen like really a whole lot of Christmas movies, and so I really had to figure out like what movies I'm going to watch. And then I remembered, I did watch this movie. I did enjoy this movie, and I should go ahead and talk about this movie. So yeah, and how this movie is connected to my childhood. Like the cartoon came out in 1966. So by the time I watched it, or by the time I started watching it, it had been like traditionally coming on every Christmas for several years. So I had watched it like every year for a long time. And then, of course, reading the book too. So I don't even think I had the book. I think I read the book in a library or something. So it's been part of my life for a long time. So I wonder if you've watched this movie or watched the cartoon. Let me know if this is part of your Christmas tradition. If you enjoy How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Another interesting thing is that Grinch is one of the two words that Dr. Seuss had introduced to our lexicon. The first one being nerd. Oh, I don't know if that's the first word, but that's the other word that I remember. Nerd is one of the words that he gave us. And he also gave us Grinch. And when we use Grinch, we are always describing somebody who's mean and stingy. At least that's what I'm always thinking about when I think of a person as a Grinch, as a person as a mean and stingy person. So that's it for our favorite parts of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And now let's talk about the top 10 trivia. The top 10 trivia is a lot of information coming from IMDb with some bits and pieces coming from other sources. There's a scene where the Grinch is directing his dog. And in that scene, the dog, Max, played by Kelly, before stealing Christmas, is a result of Jim Carrey making fun of producer and director Ron Howard, imitating his style of directing. Howard found the scene hilarious and decided to include it in the movie. And yeah, it is funny. It's like, I thought that Jim Carrey was making fun of Hollywood in general, but he was specifically making fun of Ron Howard. And so that's hilarious. According to Rick Baker, the prosthetic makeup Jim Carrey wore took about 2 hours to apply and 1 hour to remove. Carrey revealed on the Graham Norton show that he felt so confined and uncomfortable in the latex skin that he sought counseling from a CIA agent who taught him torture-resistant techniques. Carrey's yellow contact lenses were so uncomfortable that he wasn't able to wear them at times during filming. Some shots of his eyes were colored in post-production. Things escalated to a point where Kazuhiro, the makeup artist who had the job of applying Carrey's makeup, had to leave the production for a few days until director Ron Howard called him back, promising that Carrey would keep his temper in check. Hiro also claimed that Carrey was mean to everyone. And I think by everyone, I think he means everyone in the makeup department, because Taylor Momsen, who played Cindy Lou Who, she said that Jim Carrey was nothing but nice to her. And the other versions of this is like a famous story. So the other versions of the story that I've heard was more like Jim Carrey just was mean to everybody in the makeup department. Also, Hiro said that there were times when they couldn't even finish putting makeup on. Hiro further claimed that Carrey would disappear from set and return with makeup ripped off. Hiro returned to production to continue applying Carrey's makeup, but cited that it was the worst experience of his life and one of the reasons why he initially retired from the film business. According to Carrey, he became a Zen master while sitting in the makeup chair. So that's probably the most famous bit of trivia about this movie, that being Jim Carrey's experience having makeup being applied to him. I think that someone had asked him sometime if he would be willing to do like a sequel to this movie. And he said, sure, he'd do it, because now they got the technology where he doesn't even have to apply the makeup. He would just do motion capture. And I think he's referencing motion capture. And because he doesn't want to put that makeup on ever again. The jewels in Martha May's hair when she's explaining the Grinch's backstory are from the tree topper that the young Grinch had made for Martha, implying that she still had feelings for him. And I think that that's pretty obvious. I really like that aspect of the story. There's a line that I had where Jim Carrey is talking about his schedule, or the Grinch is talking about his schedule, and this was the dialogue that I had, or a monologue that I guess it could be a dialogue because he's actually talking to Max. Well, anyway, that was the one where I did at the beginning of the show. So there's one particular line where the Grinch says, 6:30 p.m., dinner with me. I can't cancel that again. That was improvised by Jim Carrey. Carrey also improvised the scene where he pulls the tablecloths from under the plates and cans. Originally, everything was supposed to fly off the table, but Carrey executed the move so perfectly, which, while he exits the screen, then returns and knocks the stuff off the table anyway, which I thought was super funny. I really liked that part. Many of the Grinch's lines were ad-libbed by Jim Carrey. Ron Howard was so thankful for Jim Carrey putting up with the uncomfortable hours to apply his makeup that during filming he put on the Grinch suit with full makeup and directed one day with the suit on. He intended this to be a show of appreciation to Carrey. However, when Carrey saw Howard in full Grinch outfit, he was angered, believing it was a stunt double who looked nothing like him, that's kind of funny. And at the same time, I don't know how that was resolved. Like, did Ron Howard finally convince Carrey that it was him in makeup? I'm not sure. Carrey was suggested for the title role by Audrey Geisel, the widow of Dr. Seuss, who controlled the rights to the book. She also suggested Jack Nicholson, Dustin Hoffman, and Robin Williams. She also had final script approval and was responsible for removing a lot of the adult humor and sexual innuendos that was snuck into the script. Except for that one part that I had mentioned earlier. Apparently that they was able to sneak that in. Also, it's interesting to imagine either Jack Nicholson or Robin Williams playing the Grinch. I'm not really too sure about Dustin Hoffman, but especially Robin Williams, he would have been fascinating. Mrs. Geiso came to the set of Man on the Moon to see if Jim Carrey was right to play the Grinch. He was so deep into the character of Andy Kaufman, however, he had to essentially do an impression of himself doing an impression of the Grinch, and that was what got him the gig. Which is a crazy thing to say. The Whoville set was primarily constructed on the Universal Studios backlot behind the Bates Motel. During a filming break, Carrey startled tourists on the Universal backlot tour by running out of the motel wearing a dress and waving a knife. None of the visitors recognized him, and tour guides still share the story when passing the Bates Motel on the tour. Jim Carrey's accent for the Grinch was based on that of Sir Sean Connery, as he contorts his facial muscles to create the Grinch's sinister grin. It is not achieved with prosthetics. So when so that's two things. One is that he's really imitating Sean Connery, which makes the scene with the kilt make sense. Or the scene where he wears a tablecloth and he refers to it as a kilt. And then there are moments where he contorts his face and you think that it's like a makeup job, but it's not the makeup. It's actually his face. He has enough control over his face where his expression comes through the makeup, and he has the Grinch has a very sinister grin, and it's a very good job. Lastly, no other movie has featured so many characters in heavy makeup and costumes since The Wizard of Oz, 1939. I'm not exactly sure when this bit of trivia was written, so I'm not 100% sure that if this is still true today. However, I will note that most of the times, especially when you're dealing with a lot of actors in makeup, what they'll tend to do is that they'll do motion capture, and they'll just use CGI. So that's it for the trivia. Now let's see what the critics thought. The critics have it at 50%, and the audience score was 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. I am surprised because I enjoyed this movie so much, and it has such it's much lower than I anticipated. And in IMDb reviews, it has a 6.4 out of 10. So it's one of those rare occasions where it's rated higher on IMDb than it is on Rotten Tomatoes. Douglas Davidson from Elements of Madness wrote, "Grinch stories have done little to excite my imagination. That said, one can easily appreciate the technical aspects that apply to the creation of the Grinch figure in live action, the world of the Who's, the art direction, and set design." And I guess that's a fair assessment. Everybody's not going to go gaga over the stories, and apparently it didn't for Douglas Davidson, but he had a great appreciation for the makeup effects and the set design. Keith Garlington from Keith and the Movies wrote, "With a little more polish and a lot more restraint, this could have been a holiday treat. Instead, it's a repetitive and sometimes laborious exercise. And to that, I disagree. Strongly, in fact. I thought it was fantastic." Jessica Gonzalez from Geek Vibes Nation wrote, "A perfect blend of holiday cheer, warmth, humor, and a pleasing aesthetic. It has a lot of layers to it that are unfortunately glossed over. The cast is insanely good, and all of the performances are incredibly strong." And that I agree. I believe this is a review after my own heart. And last we have Rachel Wagner from Rachel's Reviews on YouTube. And she wrote, "It just doesn't work, taking these short Seuss stories and turning them into a feature film. Very unpleasant to watch." And I did not find this very unpleasant. I thought it was very pleasurable. And I do think that if you take these short stories and you work them, they can make very entertaining movies. Finally, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas is, as of this recording, available on Prime Video and Peacock. Now, next week, we can actually have a conversation about The Running Man, the movies, and the novel. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Threads, TikTok, Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. Please contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlookcinema.com. Please rate and review on your favorite podcast app. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like or subscribe or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. One last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.